This is Ray Hadley in the morning, right across Australia.
And good morning and welcome. Friday the 30th of July. I'm Ray Hadley. Great to have your company on 2GB, 2CC, 4BC, stationed on the Capital Radio, Midwest Radio, Grant Broadcaster, Resonate Networks, and all our listeners on the 2GB and 4BC apps. Atop of 19 in the city of Sydney, same out west, atop of 22 in Brisbane. We'll check the weather across the rest of the listening area shortly. And no matter where you're listening, the number's the same, 131873. Email me, rayhadley.com, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. Access information from the program by going to facebook.com/The Ray Hadley Morning Show. Now, a wonderful, wonderful day of celebration in Tokyo. Just sensational. Started with Isaac Stubbly Cook, becoming the first Australian in 57 years to win gold on the 200-metre breaststroke, setting a new Olympic record. Kyle Chalmers narrowly missed out on gold, claiming silver in the 100-metre freestyle final. He was in one of the slow lanes. He wasn't drawn to win, but he did a remarkable job. And equally remarkably, the Australians 4x200 women's freestyle relay team won bronze. They were favoured to win gold, given what they'd done previously, but the Chinese swimmers have come from nowhere to win that. And Emma McKeon and Kate Campbell are into the final of the 100 freestyle for women. Now, there was a problem at the pole vaulting because we have this overlapping system in Olympics where the swimming is winding down. We'll get to the relays shortly, but there are still semis and finals to be contested as the track and field starts. And as the track and field started, we got a bit of a problem. Our Aussie pole vaulters, Curtis Marshall and Linda Kennedy, close contacts, we kept separate from their teammates. That's because probably one of the favourites to medal, the American pole vaulter Sam Kedricks, has tested positive for COVID-19 and has been removed from the village. But because they were in, I think, close contact in relation to training, they're keeping an eye on things. They're free to train and compete while they continue to test negative. All Aussie athletes except these two, Marshall and Kennedy, are allowed to resume normal because they've been in quarantine, of course, for 14 days. There's a stack of events on through the course of the day. Australian women's sevens has made it 2 wins from 2 games to start their campaign, which is wonderful. Australia went down to Serbia in the men's water polo 14-8, unfortunately. The Hockey Roos are 4 from 4 for the first time in their Olympic history, defeating New Zealand 1-0. And after round 1, Mark Leishman is a top-placed Aussie. He's 31st, 7 shots off the pace at -1. Cameron Smith, shooting an even round, is placed 41st. The Austrian, Sepp Straka, leads the field with a 1-stroke lead at 8 under par. Round 2 is underway this morning. So, yes, golf is part of the Olympics, as it was in 2016, of course. But reality strikes us, and back we go to the virus. Oh, Jessica Fox. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned Jessica Fox. Broken through her first Olympic gold medal by winning the women's C1 canoe slalom. Now, she comes from Penrith. And just a little sidelight here. The Penrith Regatta Centre was built specifically for the year 2000 Olympics. So we're talking about a long time ago, 21 years ago. And it was used for the first time in competition at the Olympics. Now, this young lady lives out there. And had she not had that facility in Western Sydney, we may never have seen her win a gold medal. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful acknowledgement. And I guess Brisbane are looking forward to this in 2032. There'll be kids now who will have training facilities they wouldn't have dreamed of by the time we get to 2032 and beyond. So we'll look forward to that happening. Anyway, reality bites us and we go back to the virus. I've got some interesting stories to tell you about AstraZeneca and Pfizer today. Now, we've had the scare campaign run by many and unfortunately headed up by the Chief Medical Officer in Queensland, Jeanette Young, when she presided over that ridiculous statement. She didn't want to be the first CMO to be there when an 18-year-old died from AstraZeneca. And I'll share a couple of things with you. Firstly, this comes from Spain, and it's been reported right across the globe today. Patients develop blood clotting conditions after receiving the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine at a similar rate to those that received the Pfizer jab. And I might say it's a minimal rate. So, you know, all of a sudden we were saying, oh, you've got to get Pfizer, not AstraZeneca, because, you know, and there were people in authority suggesting that in Australia as well. But a team of researchers from Spain, the UK and Netherlands compared data from over 1.3 million people vaccinated against COVID in Catalonia, looking for evidence of blood clotting conditions that developed after they received the vaccinations. In this study, including 1.3 million people vaccinated against the COVID-19. Similar safety profiles are seen in both vaccines. Similar safety profiles. Crucially, the study authors found that people who had been infected with COVID-19 developed blood clots at a far higher rate than those who'd received either the AstraZeneca or, of course, Pfizer. So the message, if I can just put that in plain English, you're a big hope of dying from blood clotting if you're unvaccinated, either with Pfizer or AstraZeneca. Let that sink in. Let that sink in to all those at the moment who aren't getting vaccinated, although we're getting better at it. Now, I've been talking to the New South Wales Department of Health overnight. I'm having my second AstraZeneca on Monday, and young Liam, who works with me, I mentioned this earlier, he's 25. I've mentioned members of my family the same age as him have had AstraZeneca, and Liam said, if you're getting it, can I get it? My first shot. And I said, well, mate, you better, discuss it with your doctor and all the rest of it. I don't want to be tipping you into it. It's not my job to, just because I work with you, to tell you to get AstraZeneca. That's entirely up to you. He's a sensible young fella. And he said, after discussions, he came back and said, no, I'm all for it. So he's going to get it done on Monday as well, because he wants to illustrate to young people that we've got to get this AstraZeneca into our systems. Or Pfizer, as the case may be, but one of the two. We've got to get them into our systems because we've got to get to that 80 to 90% vaccinated rate for the population, and then we'll come out of this. But I wanted to share with you, and it'll take a bit of time, but it's very important. This is a posting from a young lady called Jemima Hutchinson. Now, Jemima is the daughter of Caroline Hutchinson, who's a long-time breakfast announcer in Queensland on the Sunshine Coast. Now, Jemima is a paramedic in England and has been there for quite some time. Now, her mum, and I've got a number of people I work with who used to work with Caroline, has released this rather powerful message from Jemima. It's released this week. And Jemima writes, all right, Australian friends, I really didn't want to have to do this, but let's talk COVID. I've been working for the ambulance service in the UK throughout the pandemic. I've had to carry out a resuscitation attempt on a 45-year-old man. We're unsuccessful. I had to tell his wife he was dead, while his 9 and 11-year-old children slept upstairs. He had a cough for a week and felt extremely fatigued in the days leading up to his death. I sat with an 87-year-old man and his wife of 62 years while they said goodbye to each other for the last time. I had to take him to hospital. He just tested positive for COVID, and she wasn't able to come with him. I had to tell a 20-year-old daughter we'd done everything we could, but your mum didn't make it. She'd been slightly short of breath for 2 weeks. And a colleague of mine, a 52-year-old man with no medical history, had his life support turned off after a month in ICU. He worked for the NHS, the National Health System, fighting COVID until he was put out of action on a ventilator. His colleagues and friends had to continue working while their heart was aching for this bloke and his family. These are just a few of the stories from the past year and a half, writes Jemima. There are thousands more that I and other healthcare workers could tell. It's been horrific. These harrowing situations make me feel awful about being sad that I've not seen my family in almost 2 years. My heart breaks every day because I've no idea when I'll be back in Australia, but I still count myself lucky because after having COVID, the only residual effect I have is with having to clear my throat of phlegm a few times a day. The UK vaccination rollout has been incredible. And since the vaccination of millions of British people, I can't even remember the last vaccinated COVID patient I went to that couldn't breathe. The vaccination was not rushed, it was quick. And it was quick because they had so many infectious people and samples to help them make and test. The questioning with COVID and the vaccine makes me so upset. You haven't seen the effects of the virus, and I promise you, you really don't want to. You absolutely don't need to tell me this is the people who made it are a lot smarter than me. But this vaccine, I can tell you as a frontline worker, works. And it's your only way out of this. Prophetic words from a young woman, an Australian working in the UK. Well done to you, Jemima. I hope plenty of people read your words having heard them here. Now, we've got revised rules from yesterday. There are a stack of them, but put simply, went through them uphill and down dale yesterday. If you live in one of the 8 LGAs in Sydney that are regarded as hotspots, and that includes, as you know, Blacktown, Parramatta, Cumberland, Campbelltown, Liverpool, Fairfield, Canterbury Bankstown, well, you're basically in lockdown, and I've already been receiving emails from people who've already been fined by police for breaking the rules. Not deliberate breaks, but just inadvertent, and they've been fined. There is no room for complacency. Now, if you're in those areas, you're restricted to 5K from home. You must not go for shopping or exercise more than 5K from home. Now, Mick Fuller, not the Premier, Mick Fuller has called in the Defence Force. 300 troops called in as cases surge. Now, I've got a bit of mail that there'll be, of course, fewer people with the virus today. It was 239 yesterday. I don't know how many fewer, but I'm told it won't be above the 239, which is good. I hope it goes down dramatically, but it probably won't. Defence Force troops have been called in to help enforce the toughest COVID restrictions in New South Wales after a massive spike in COVID-19 cases sparked further moves to ensure compliance in the western and southwestern parts of Sydney. The Police Commissioner, Mick Fuller, asked for troops. 300 ADF troops are expected to be deployed within days to help with the compliance and logistics as the New South Wales government attempts to rein in spiralling rates of COVID infections. Anyone contemplating a protest tomorrow, don't do it. You'll be fined heavily and you'll be turned back at points of entry. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. For your own sake and the sake of the rest of the country, don't do it. It's just stupid to even contemplate it in the current circumstances. Just stay home. Stay home. Don't come out. Anyway, there are a stack of other stories to get through. I've got a couple of stories coming from Queensland, and there's one new local case, a 17-year-old female student currently under investigation. And I've got here a story about the closure of a school from the 4BC newsroom. This morning, a major Brisbane school closed today for specialist cleaning after a person associated with their school community was diagnosed with the virus. Indooroopilly State High School parents were notified the early hours of this morning via email that the school will be shut for 48 hours following the confirmed case. The acting executive principal, Derek Weeks, urged anyone associated with the school who is feeling unwell to consult with health authorities. I'm writing to let you know that a person associated with our school has been diagnosed with COVID-19, and we believe it's a 17-year-old female student. A 17-year-old female student. In Victoria, 3 new local cases, all linked to current outbreaks and all in quarantine through their entire infectious period. So there's a problem in Queensland, and we hope it is contained. They've contained it previously. We hope they can contain it now again. So we go to the next stage, and it's about under 40s getting vaccinated. And there's good news there as well about the under 40s. We'll have a yarn about that and the fact that the message is getting out there, and I want to be part of getting that message out there as well. You know, through all of this, I'm sure there's been some price gouging and the like, but there's the most offensive one that's brought to our attention today. A doctor's clinic at Campsie in southwestern Sydney charging patients up to $250 for a consultation to get a Pfizer vaccine are being investigated. Well, they should be bloody well shut down. Signs at the Campsie Blessed Healthcare Clinic were advising new patients yesterday they would need to pay $250 for a consultation to get a vaccine dose. The Premier Gladys Berejiklian said anyone asking people to pay for a vaccine is not doing the right thing. A Campsie local said news about the paid Pfizer vaccine was being widely circulated among the area's Chinese community. So they're preying on vulnerable people here. So what they're saying, they'd say, Mr. Hunt, the health minister, said the vaccines are free. But what they'd say, yes, but the consultation is $250, which is just nonsense. They're price gouging. And they need to be shut down. Or they need to be pulling the signs down saying $250 for a consultation. Oh, by the way, we'll give you a free Pfizer vaccine for $250. It's an absolute disgrace that people in the medical profession, and I'm sure medical practitioners across Australia are absolutely reviled by this news, would be price gouging in such a manner. It's just disgusting. Now, firefighters have been called to another truck fire on the M1 in Queensland, which has caused significant congestion 4 days after a B-double cab erupted in flames on the motorway. Now, they were called to Mollendina at 6:10 this morning, Pacific Motorway southbound. The truck fire was reported at the Nerang North off-ramp. The fire, which appears to have started in the back of the tip truck, was well alight at 6:30. Firefighters put out the blaze, God bless them, made sure the area is safe by 7:20. Police are on the scene conducting traffic control, but it's a bit of a mess, and through the course of the morning, Olympia will keep you in contact with that. It's southbound around Mollendina on the freeway to the Gold Coast, so a problem there as well. We've mentioned the school closing down in Queensland, and as we get news from our newsroom, we'll keep you in contact with that as well as to what's going on. There is a report today, as you would expect, about Josh Massoud, who I revealed yesterday had lost his litigation, his defamation case against this organisation, this radio station, and many others. I've read the full judgment. It goes to 179 pages. I had to get up very early this morning to read it because I wanted to digest it so I had a full understanding of it, given I was one of the people being sued, and it makes for joyous reading. This particular puppet has been put back in his box by Her Honour, and not only has all the cases in defamation against large media organisations been dismissed, it's a rather compelling judgment showing what sort of person you're dealing with here, and he has been told that he will not only pay his cost, but the cost of all the media organisations. Now, there are 5 involved, 5 media organisations, at a couple of $100,000 a pop, I'd imagine. We're talking about $1 million that he'll need to find to pay for what he did here. And the way he's conducted himself, not just in the court case, but prior to that, as I've indicated earlier, has been reprehensible. And that's the way that the judgment fell. So it's not often we crow about winning court cases, but in this particular case, I'll crow from the highest fence. As he once said about me, in relation to a matter, I think he said, I now worship at the feet of Parish. Well, I now worship at the feet of Her Honour for her decision yesterday. Josh, plenty of ice cream to be sold this coming weekend from your ice cream truck, son. 131873 is that open line number if you'd like to join us. Let's get to the sport as well. We've gone through some of the Olympic details. We'll get a stack of other details from Mark Levy through the course of the morning. Now, you Parramatta fans, I don't want to say I told you so, but you can't win the comp with Brad Arthur as coach. And inexplicably, the people that run the place signed him to a further contract through the course of the early part of this season or late last season. The Roosters just gave it to them, 28-0. And then you've got the undignified manner in which the captain, Clint Gutherson, abused one of his fellow teammates, which was heard on TV last night. The place is basically, they've got the talent to win a competition, Parramatta, but they don't have the coach to win a competition. The Roosters 28, Parramatta 0. Tonight, West Tigers take on New Zealand Warriors. All these games coming from Queensland. That's at Suncorp. The second game called by David Morrow, Darryl Broman, Mark Riddell is Brisbane, North Queensland. That's at 8 o'clock. Tomorrow, the team back in action. St George Illawarra play South Sydney. That's coming in from Rockhampton. 5:30 Newcastle take on Canberra. That's coming from Suncorp. And the second game from Suncorp is Melbourne and Penrith. There'll be commentary there with Chris Warren, Jamie Soward and Shane Flanagan. And then on Sunday, 2 o'clock, Canterbury take on Gold Coast from the Gold Coast Stadium. David Morrow, Darryl Broman, Mark Riddell there. And the second game on 9, Cronulla take on Manly. Jai Arrow faces State of Origin ban, they say. A ban from competing in next year's State of Origin because of his indiscretion. Unfairly made the Maroons coach Paul Green look like an irresponsible hack, according to the QRL. AFL, over the course of the weekend, Gold Coast Suns take on Melbourne, Sydney Swans take on Essendon, and the GWS side, they play Port Adelaide. Last night, there was one match played for the Super Netball. The Firebirds were up against the Collingwood Magpies, and looking at this, the Magpies won by 66-59. No matches scheduled for the weekend. In fact, they've put off until, I think, next Monday because of, obviously, COVID ramifications. So there, as you can glean from all of that, there's plenty for us to talk about. 131873, email me at 2gb.com, rayhadley.com, 4bc.com.au, podcast videos and program content by going to facebook.com/The Ray Hadley Morning Show. I'm Ray Hadley on 2GB, 2CC, 4BC, stations on the Capital Radio, Midwest Radio, Grant Broadcaster, Resonate Networks and our digital platforms. David Elliott is the New South Wales Police and Emergency Services Minister. He's on the line. Minister, good morning.
Good morning, Ray.
I took the view when this announcement came yesterday after the request from Mick Fuller that, and I know you're a former Defence Force personnel, that just the sight of armed services on the streets of Sydney, southwestern Sydney, I think will give comfort to people. The men and women of the Defence Forces engender great respect, and the fact they're out there with their colleagues from the police force, I think, is a good idea.
I think you're right, Ray. I mean, this is a protocol that's been established for over a quarter of a century, having defence aid to the civil community, and we've certainly seen it during the bushfires. We saw it with the floods. and I was very much involved in a couple of operations when I was in the regular army myself. So I think people need to realise that if they're doing the right thing, they've got nothing to worry about. But, Australians who have engaged with Defence Force before would know that they are very, very professional, first-class operation. And I know that I've had calls from MPs and community leaders in the ethnic communities who are asking questions about it, and they have no reason to be concerned whatsoever. It is still a police operation. It's supported by the Australian Defence Force so that we can increase the compliance that the police are needing to enforce.
Now, it's a battle because you're down on troops yourself, the New South Wales Police Force, because of COVID. There's a section of the police community who are in quarantine after they were close contacts in southwestern Sydney. Does that make it more difficult that you've got your own troops sidelined?
No, not really. I mean, the numbers that are in isolation at the moment from the police force point of view are only small. I spoke to a couple of them yesterday. I think a few of them come out of isolation at midnight tonight. But the police force is a very, very agile organisation, and we can redeploy people that at a moment's notice. We did that last Saturday at the ride in the city, and we'll probably do it again over the course of the COVID response. But what we will see over the ADF deployment is the police being able to double essentially their size when it comes to the compliance checks, because like they did in Melbourne, and it's no different to what Dan Andrews did, is have one officer out with one soldier, and instead of having two officers out. So the level of training is consistent. The understanding of civil law is consistent. It's just that we've got this wonderful support from the Australian Army, and it's something that's very welcome.
Okay. Well, most importantly, we're looking, at another month of all of this. But the Premier did say yesterday, if things improve in the coming weeks, that could be shortened. But it's a testing time for everyone, Minister, in the community, and most notably those people who are charged with keeping law and order.
Well, that's right, and we need to remember that. I mean, these police officers and soldiers have got families to go home to as well. That's why I was horrified at the way some of the police were treated last Saturday. And we've got to make sure that, if we comply with the health orders, we're more likely to have the lockdown reduced. It's not going to be extended by not complying with them. And all those people that are complaining about compliance, the compliance regime, and complaining about lockdown need to realise that it's for their benefit, it's for their health, it's for their welfare, and the sooner we all get jabbed and we all comply, the quicker we can release some of these restrictions. And as you well know, Ray, nobody wants to get to the pub and the club quicker than me, I can assure you of that. But what we've also got to make sure is that when we do open up, we don't have to go through lockdowns again, and that's why we have these the restrictions, and that's why we have the vaccine regime.
You touched on tomorrow. I'm pleading with people, and I made the suggestion that a lot of the people went there last Saturday with good intentions, but stupidly went there. But they're mixing with, bikies and criminals who are there to just simply disrupt the police force and disrupt the community. And I'd appeal to people that doing what you did last Saturday achieved absolutely nothing, and it won't achieve anything tomorrow either. So please just stay at home. I know that the police will have an active role in stopping people entering the CBD, and we don't want to disclose the sort of things they'll be doing. But I just appeal to people's common sense, for goodness sake. I mean, you may feel aggrieved, you may feel unhappy, but going there tomorrow achieves absolutely nothing except that it increases the chance of you getting crook.
That's exactly right, Ray. It is actually counterproductive. If you think that you're going to reduce the lockdown period by protesting, you're actually doing the exact opposite. And I'm not convinced, and the scientists may tell me I'm wrong, but I'm not convinced that the bump in numbers that we've seen in the last day or two aren't a result of people doing the wrong thing last weekend at that protest. Unfortunately, the people that listen to the Ray Hadley morning program are probably not the people that go to these rallies, but they may influence them. They may know somebody. And you're right, it was a whole range of demographics that were there last Saturday. It was everybody from political wannabes to green groups to far right-wing groups to anti-vaxxers and people that seem to think that they know more than the nation's best and smartest scientists. So my appeal, you can protest. Ring Talkback Radio. Email your local member. Start a social media campaign. This is a restriction of movement, not a restriction of free speech. So free speech is still there. Make sure you practice it. I'm listening to what my constituents say. I mean, I'm in my electorate office today responding to dozens of constituent inquiries and complaints and criticisms and compliments and just simple questions. There's still a way that you can engage in public debate.
Okay, stay safe. All the best. Talk soon.
Thanks, Ray. Talk to you soon.
David Elliott, New South Wales Police and Emergency Services Minister. I got a lovely note from a young lady suffering with cystic fibrosis, diagnosed when she was a small baby. She's now 24, and it's been a difficult time for this young lady. Her name is Adriana Llanos, and she's on the line right now. G'day, Adriana.
Good morning, Ray. How are you?
All right, darling. I'm really delighted to receive your email, and I said to the crew, let's have a yarn to this young lady, because we had a talk earlier this week with two people, Brooke and Dean, about the help they'd received, of course, from Kaleido, and then we moved to Orcambi, and we're battling at the moment to get Trikafta on the PBS. Now, you can tell me a story about Trikafta, can you?
Yes. So back in March, I was granted compassionate use of Trikafta, and it has been absolutely life-changing for me. The last 4 years have been quite difficult with my CF journey. I've had low lung function, sitting around the 50s, and then I was diagnosed with a microbacterial infection.
Oh, dear.
That took around 18 months to clear up with a mixture of 3 different antibiotics, which was quite a grueling process. And then I was blowing under a certain range of lung function where I was granted the compassionate use of Trikafta.
So when did the compassionate use of Trikafta come? Early this year, did it?
Yeah, it did. It was around January. I think they were granting compassionate use for a couple of the CF patients here. And it has absolutely changed my life completely. I'm no longer tired by, midday. I can go to work properly with full function. Like, I'm a full functioning person at this point. My lung function, when I got tested a month later, I was at around the 63% mark. So I had a 13% gain in lung function in 4 weeks.
In 4 weeks, love? That's unbelievable.
For someone like me, that is completely life-changing. Like, just in everyday movement, in my clearance, I'm no longer congested. I'm no longer laboured in breathing. Like, it's changed my entire life, not just for me, but the people it indirectly affects. Like, my family doesn't have to worry so much about me, and it's changed everything.
Adriana, I'm greatly indebted to you for sending me the email and being happy to talk to us, because we've got a decision coming up early next month from the organisation to make the recommendation of the government and the PBS. And we've had some success, as I said earlier, with firstly Kaleido, then Orcambi. But this one is a game breaker for so many people like you, and we just hope and pray that the government is going to do the right thing and make it readily available, not just to you on compassionate grounds, but to everyone at a reasonable cost.
It's so important to have it on the PBS for everybody. It would honestly change the lives of so many CF people. I can't even begin to explain how important it is.
Well, I'm going to make a date with you. We're going to have a yarn the day that the government tell me that it's on the PBS, and we're going to have a celebration, a virtual celebration on the radio, okay?
Perfect.
Good on you. Thank you so much for writing to me, and thank you so much for being available to talk to us as well. And I hope and pray that we get a result for this, not just for you, but for everyone, okay?
Me too. Thanks for having me, Ray.
Thanks, Adriana. Lovely to talk to you. Fantastic. A 24-year-old, Adriana Llanos. Life-changing. Early this year, compassionate use of Trikafta, and all of a sudden she's able to, in her words, lead a normal life. She can walk, run, and work, do whatever she needs to do, and takes all the pressure off the family as well. Just a wonderful story. So We're keeping our fingers crossed. They've done the right thing, the federal government and the PBS previously, the advisory board, in relation to two life-changing drugs. We're hoping that all of a sudden it'll be another change with this life-changing drug, Trikafta. It's good to have your company. Well, we're all cheering, weren't we? Jessica Fox just didn't win the C1 at the Tokyo Olympics. She blitzed the field. This young lady from Western Sydney, and everyone across Australia was sharing in the delight that was evident in her face as she realised she'd won the gold medal. She's on the line from Tokyo. Jessica, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ray. Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, you make me feel old. My first Olympics were 92. Dad competed there. Then I went to Atlanta. Mum was there. And now I'm talking to this young lady with a gold medal all these years later.
Wow, that's a pretty cool story. You've been to quite a few Olympics then.
Yeah, I've finished now, but I get as much joy watching you as when I was at the other Olympics broadcasting, and it's just a wonderful success story. I mentioned earlier that, you know, and you can barely remember it given you were born in 1994, but in the lead up to Sydney in 2000, we had all these magnificent facilities built, including what happened at Penrith. Unbelievable. And it suited your sport, as it turned out to be. Can you recollect anything about Sydney in 2000 or anything about what was happening with the regatta centre and the like?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have learnt more since, and as I've gotten older, and finding out that my dad was quite involved in lobbying to get canoe slalom to stay in the Olympic program and get that Penrith facility built. But it's just an amazing venue. It's a world-class venue. Obviously, hosted the Sydney Games, and it's where I grew up because both my parents were coaches. So I was very much part of that, you know, buzz in 2000. I understood that something special was happening at home in Sydney, and I did get to go and see some events, and then obviously followed the games in 2004 and 2008. And then when I started paddling, to have that venue in Penrith as my home course has just meant that I've been able to be a world contender, and I think it was, an amazing place to grow up and to build my skills as an athlete.
Mm. I could see, the anguish in your face when you'd won and the jubilation, but there also was a hint of sheer relief because you really tortured your body on that run. You really gave it everything you had. I don't think you had much left in the tank, did you?
No, I think I left it all out there on the water. Emotionally, physically, it was everything I had to pull out that run, and I was so proud of the effort and so proud of doing that race, because I think, you know, every athlete obviously dreams of winning an Olympic medal, but we also dream of doing the run or the race that we can and to our potential. And I think that's what I really wanted to do. You know, people have been saying, oh, you deserve to win the gold, and it's hard to say that because you've got to always earn that medal and earn that race. But I think for me, I just kept telling myself I deserve to do my best run. And so I was so relieved and so happy to have done that.
Mm. And you, I'm not going to say single-handedly, but you talked about Dad championing the Regatta Centre. You championed this event to be included for women, which is a sizable feat to convince people that it should be, but it paid dividends.
Yeah, I think, you know, in Australia, we've been fortunate to have had the support of our federation and our coaches when we started in the canoe event, and it wasn't yet a world championship event. It wasn't an Olympic event. And, you know, we really lobbied hard to get that included into the Olympic Games because we believed in the importance of gender parity at the Olympics and in our sport. So it was a big push by a lot of amazing women and amazing coaches, and just such a big celebration yesterday to be part of that moment and to I think, you know, I FaceTimed Mike Druce, who was one of the coaches who was pushing very hard for it, and, you know, it's special to share it with those people who made it possible. So to become the first women's C1 Olympic champion is, you know, it holds that much more importance for me now because of the journey we've had to come here.
Just wonderful. I've got a young bloke working with me here, and when we thought we might be talking to you, he bobbed up and said, I went to the same high school As Jessica, and I said, did you? And he said, Blacksland
Really?
High. I said, yes, but he's now confessed that he was 3 years behind you. And so, because I said, if I ask her that, will she remember you? And he said, not likely. I was 3 years behind her. But you see, you provide an inspiration to a whole range of young women now, not just at Blacksland High, but across Western Sydney, across suburbs of Brisbane, to maybe think about this as a sport, to think about what you've been able to achieve. And it may not be possible, but it's an opportunity perhaps.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. Shout out to the Blacksland High people out there. Yeah, look, it is amazing to see all the messages and the support from back home, and to see the videos of, you know, kids jumping up and down in front of the TV or getting into made up canoes and kayaks. And I even saw a video of a little girl with two spatulas stuck together doing kayaking motions. So, you know, to provide a bit of inspiration and joy and bring that into people's living rooms during a bit of a challenging time, I think that's just been such a rewarding part of this experience as well. So hopefully we do have a few more paddlers out there keen to get into the sport.
Well, if they're in Western Sydney, they've got that famous regatta centre in the Nepean not far away as well. Now, what you've achieved, young lady, 7 gold medals, the most successful paddler, male or female, in World Championship history, but now you add to that a gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics, and I'm just thrilled for you. I know you've got to come back home now, so travel safely, and we'll be able to catch up with you when you get back to Sydney.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're a champion. It's all the best to you. Jessica Fox there, our gold medalist from the C1 canoe slalom. Just unbelievable.